Buenas dan saludos para ambos todos ni manggagi pagubuni. Most specifically, man members GST Special Economic Service. Then of course, mangatsong muging minay 32 na legislaturang guhan. Manggagit pa ako nataluan pareho may ginagawa anunsyo gi publiko gini dia 16 2014 alas 2 para takanhunta ni ST Special Economic Service po di manera ni ginagawa administrasyon dani taymanu tafafana muna para gobernota winigi ekonomiya na banda. Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this publicly announced meeting of the Special Economic Service Group. Today's May 16th, 2014, 2 p.m. The Special Economic Service Group was established along with the Special Accounting Service Group in public law by the Guam legislature, signed into law by the governor of Guam several years ago, sponsored originally by Senator Rory Spicio. It was meant to provide a mechanism in which the debate on the issue of the government finances, budgets, and so forth can be articulated in a group outside of the political process, basically outside the legislature and outside the governor, to allow statutorily set positions who are able within the government of Guam to give us feedback on the activities happening in our community that affect government finances and government budget and the economy of Guam in general. Statutorily, the Special Economic Service Group is composed of the Director of Revenue and Taxation, the Office of the Public Auditor, represented by the Public Auditor, the Guam Visitors Bureau, represented by the Research Bureau Department, the Bureau of Budget Management Research by its Director, Department of Administration by its Director, the Guam Economic Development Authority by its Director. The Department of Labor and the Bureau of Statistics and Plans are also statutory members. The economists in those agencies are statutory members, and the Executive Director of the Office of Finance and Budget is also a member. In addition, the Special Economic Service is chaired by the Legislative Committee on Appropriations Chairman, who has oversight over the budget of the government of Guam. So we want to thank you. We have a full complement, and thank everyone for making the time to join us this afternoon. Before I begin, in terms of the discussion of the agenda, I want to introduce members of the legislature who are here with us. Senator Tommy Morrison to my immediate extreme left here, and Senator Frank Ogden right next to me. Thank you very much for your presence. And of course, we have just been joined by the Vice Speaker of the legislature, Senator B.J. Cruz, who's never absent from any of these meetings. And we thank him for his continued presence and contribution to the discussion on these matters. The agenda has 5 items. The first item on the agenda is the public debt update, will be presented by Gita. Then we'll get the tourism update, who will be presented by the Guam Visitors Bureau. Ms. Hannah Sid is with us this morning, or this afternoon. The employment update from the Department of Labor, 5-year forecast by the Bureau of Budget Management Research, and the FY15 SES revenues discussions will ensue after that. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and recognize the representative of the Guam Economic Development Authority, who will then be able to provide us with a report on the public debt update.
Thank you, sir.
Introduce yourself for the record, although we know who you are, and then we can begin.
Thank you. My name is Lester Carlson. I'm the Public Finance Manager for the Guam Economic Development Authority. The agenda that was passed out today contains a letter from Senator Pangelinan, or in response to a letter from Senator Pangelinan, which basically asks or provides a information on the amount of money that needs to be appropriated in FY15 to be able to cover the public debts that are on record. There's a spreadsheet that's attached, and the numbers further in the agenda that represent I think it's Bill 269, the budget bill, accurately reflect the amounts of money that are required to be appropriated to be able to pay the debts that are on the books currently for the government of Guam.
Okay. Can we just go through those?
Sure. If it's okay with everybody here, maybe we just go to the last part of the agenda, beginning on page 6 of the bill. It's like the second to the last page of the attachment. Section 3, debt service, continuing appropriations for fiscal year 15.
All right.
So beginning with the 2007 general obligation bond, the amount that's included in the budget, which Gita has verified to be accurate, is $7,874,700. The next item is the limited obligation section 30 bond. Again, we concur with the number of $15,669,957. Turning to the next page, the JFK certificates of participation, or excuse me, I missed one. The 2009 GO bonds, number C, $21,531,903. Item D, which is the JFK certificates of participation, $6,695,613. Item E, the business privilege tax, Series A, $11,948,013.
Lester, if I may just, and if anybody has a question during the time, can we just go back to the general obligation bond issue?
Sure.
The amount in the budget is $21,531,903. The general obligation 2009 Series A has a payment total this is from Gita, right? Yeah, the debt abstract itself that shows that the total amount payment for that budget or that general obligation bond is $21,417,381. Can you reconcile the what's in the budget versus what is in the debt abstract? 11/15/2014 and 5/15/2015 payments.
Yeah, what's on my copy of my debt abstract, page 58, basically has a column that says fiscal year debt service.
Right.
And the number is $21,531,902.08. Yes, it's the same.
Can you add the two?
Can I add the
Can
two?
you add the debt abstract?
This is the debt abstract.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Okay.
Yeah, we're looking at the
Page 58, right?
right.
So it has 11/15/5214, principal 4025, correct? 4,025,000.
Mm-hmm.
The interest is 8,754,050.
Okay.
Okay, and then the 5/15/2015 payment reads 8,638,331.
And 25 cents.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you just add those? Because
Your number's about 100,000 different, right?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. So just for the record, we wanted to have you kind of just look at that and reconcile that, because when we add it, there's a difference
Yeah.
Okay.
from what's in the budget.
Okay, can I get back to the
Sure.
group on this?
Yes, of course.
I have a question
Yes.
on number B.
Uh-huh.
Okay, just a clarification, for the solid waste bond of 15.7 million. You're saying that, from this footnote, right, approximately 12 million is coming from the solid waste operations fund, and 3.7 million will be coming from the general fund. Is that correct? Is that the interpretation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess my question is because of all the back and forth with
Yes.
David Natty
Right.
and stuff. How firm is the 12 million?
That's
I mean, how did you arrive at that $12 million number? Let me rephrase.
there is a requirement for, I believe it's 75% of the total debt service to be remitted to the government of Guam to offset the costs for.
That's a requirement?
Yes. The requirements in the bond indenture. So basically, we front the money.
Yeah.
When Section 30 comes in, we pay the debt service, and over the course of the ensuing 12 months, the receiver is supposed to remit to the government of Guam 75% of the debt service.
75%, okay. Well, the audit is ongoing right now, so I'll have to
Right.
verify that.
Yes.
Yeah, but
And
I don't know. I haven't seen the.
no, because
You need to turn the mic on and get the word that you're not being heard over there.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, that was my concern because, there was the controversy back and forth due to other obligations, for that there may not be enough. And I'm just raising it as a discussion.
I agree with you because, again, we go back and forth on this issue.
Right.
And we did it last year in terms of that it comes out of Section 30, that when you say there's an obligation, that's not what's happening, though.
No, you're correct.
We're not getting the remittance from the receiver, from the solid waste operation funds. And so the general fund, even though you put in your budget that 12 million is going to come from the solid waste operation funds, we don't get 12 million for debt service from the receiver.
That's correct.
We get I think it's 4, and maybe even less now, given that the principal and interest are no longer capitalized.
So that's my concern here.
Yes. So once again, we'd like that in writing, Mr. Carlson, just to go back and verify and put this into perspective, because I think that if that money is not remitted, or only a portion of that money is remitted, it automatically gets deducted from Section 30, which then automatically reduces the Section 30 available funding for the other operations and other appropriations in the budget. And that then leaves us short. It doesn't leave the debt service payment short, but it leaves the operational budget and cash available for the rest of the government of Guam short. So we need to kind of verify that.
And the audit is still ongoing right now. I don't even have a draft. Hopefully, I'll have a draft for 2013 to see exactly
What happened.
How much did they actually remit versus
yes.
how much is in the fund. And because, for example, from an obligation point of view, like the $40 million has been obligated for the closure, and that number is quite high, and like anything else, there's going to be changeover. So my concern here is, will there even be enough in the capital construction fund of that for all other closure-related costs? Yeah, so it is a concern.
All right. Yes.
Should Gita be the one that answers that question, or would that question more appropriately be asked of DOA and BBMR, of how much has been received? Because who receives it?
The information comes from Gita that we placed here in the budget now as for the payment of
I can give the information that we have and send it to you, Senator, and also the chairman. I know we have all the amounts that we received from the trustee. I mean, and also from Dave Manning, and see. I can give you all the stuff that you need for the questions you asked of us.
Because I thought in the last couple of weeks, the exchange, as the OPA is saying, between the receiver and council has been saying that they've actually withheld any remittances recently, and I'm just wondering how much how much has been withheld, and how much is anticipated to be withheld in in the upcoming year, because just the other day I reread what the receiver filed with PUC, and the government was supposed to be making they had three choices on how they were going to deal with this, and I don't think that it's been dealt with, because it's been sitting at PUC since 2011, and
Oh, yes.
there's
There's a
supposed to
movement
be a decision on whether or not the rates go up to 35 this year and 45 next year in order to meet the obligation. So we need to, somebody else has to, I don't know who's responsible for it, Mr. Chairman, but somebody's got to give us an answer and advise us, because as you put it, if we get short in this, it takes it out of Section 30, which shorts everything else.
So can we get
We'll be happy
the
to give the
remittances
information
paid?
we have, the reconciliation, all the
Right.
other stuff we have. I can give it to you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Good. Can we make it maybe for
Maybe,
2013 and maybe payments for
Yes, I can
2014?
give you the whole,
Okay,
all the amounts.
all right. Mr. Carlson, you can continue.
Yeah, I believe I left off on number E, but the business privilege tax, Series 2011A, $11,948,013.
Mhm.
Number F, the limited obligation hotel occupancy tax revenue bonds, 2011A series, $6,997,819. Item G, the business privilege tax series 2012B, $5,246,047. Item H, the general obligation or actually business privilege tax bonds series C, $2,791,054. And yes, there is a continuing requirement for the University of Guam to remit $2,028,046 as their fair share for the 1993 general obligation bond improvements that they were the recipient of.
Okay. Yeah,
This number, 78,755, doesn't coincide with the numbers on the letter that you guys submitted. I think that's the letter from you, right? This one?
That's correct. There's some other obligations listed on the spreadsheet that are not part of
Oh, okay.
like the GMH loan on the last column.
So should I be reading from the FY14 or the FY15 on this list? The total for FY15 says 104.
That's, well, again, there are some couple items here that are not part of. So the GMH debt, for example, $2 million debt comes from contact impact. But
Yeah.
the question from the chairman was to give a listing of all the debts.
Oh, okay.
So we gave those. And yes, there's a discrepancy.
yeah. Lester, the Okudu expansion project, where is that debt service? The Okudu expansion includes a debt service of $2,358,960, but it's not in the executive branch request for debt service. Is there?
Is that the continuing appropriation?
Yes.
Is it a continuing appropriation?
Correct, correct,
So automatic every year, you still have to pay that debt service.
correct. But where is it reflected in here? Where does the money come from? When you include it, I know it's a continuing, but when you include it in the debt service?
Okay. Did you take that from the TFF, or when you did that second? Was it taken from the TFF or the 2 million? That was from the TFF, the 7 million, right? That you guys that you did for part of that 7 million, 2 million you had for the Ukudu expansion.
2.9.
And that's from the reevaluation. It was a separate law. I have that. I don't have it with me, but I
It's
do
in-
recall that happening.
It's in the DOE section, I believe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
debt service coming out of the DOE budget, is that what you're telling me?
I gotta look at that law that you guys, that was passed first and then confirm. But it may have been on the TFF,
Okay.
if I am correct. I can double check for you
And
on that.
so would that,
And it was a continuing
correct.
appropriation, so it was an automatic,
so is there an automatic adjustment in the TEFF revenue estimate to reduce that amount?
I think it went to DOE. Most of the TFF goes to DOE.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I appropriate the revenue estimate for TEFF, am I appropriating it
I think you'd
with,
probably want
with
to
the
show, yeah.
2-3
Yeah.
in there or not there, is what I'm trying to
Maybe
get
I
at.
need to confirm the law that was passed.
Okay.
Because I do know it was continuing appropriation. I'm thinking that you guys took it from the TFF.
Mhm.
I need to confirm that.
Right.
And then if it is, it would be, go ahead.
And just to follow up, Mr. Chair, because Ricky, you and I are in the EFSC, right? And there's been that ongoing battle back and forth because the TEFF for 2013 was short. And, and DOE right now on their preliminary is claiming that the money hasn't yet been transferred. And I don't know yet from our last meeting what the resolution of that was. So this is just complicating other issues. Yeah.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, for the Okado expansion, the enabling statute for this was from Section 30. It was pledged against Section 30 funds. That's what's stated in the debt abstract. Okay.
The initial is Section 30.
Initial. Okay, so the initial, and so when we were taking a look at the debt abstract as of January 2014, it did include a 2.3, and I recall the appropriation continuing from the TEFF, and so we were taking a look at least where that would fit in the budget, the executive budget request, and it wasn't reflected in. I know that there was a public law that was passed. I can't remember the.
It was right before the Budget Act.
Mhm.
There was an amendment.
Yeah. Okay, so if we can reconcile, we just don't want to be appropriating everything and then leaving that out. Yeah, somehow we have to account for it in the revenue stream and in the expenditure side as well.
I hate to be difficult, Mr. Chairman,
Sure, no.
but I'm still having trouble with reconciling. For the BPT,
Mhm.
I can find the 5,246,047,
Mhm.
but on this one, I'm trying to find where the 4,810 went, because the only other number left here is 6,
BPTC,
I guess. Yeah,
if you add the two together, there's 2 million plus the 4.8. You're trying to find the 4.8 number?
yeah, but where did this 6 million come from?
Which one is that?
Oh, that's the tourism.
That's a hot one.
Okay. Oh, this plus this. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to verify once again, Lester, that the debt for the Guamamora Hospital, as you mentioned, there's a $1 million continuing appropriation, and that was the bill, I think, that was introduced by Senator Uggan, that provides for debt service for that loan. They've refinanced that loan, paid off the 10, borrowed another 15, and they're up to about 25. And the total debt service on that now shows $3.2 million. Are you telling me that so the $1 million is used to pay for that, the balance of that, and the difference between the $3.2 million and the $1 million appropriated is coming out of Compact Impact?
I think 2 million.
Yeah.
Two.
$2 million.
Yes.
Okay. And then the balance is covered by GMH? operating funds, I guess.
Healthy future or something.
Okay.
They're mouth to mouth.
Right. But we just want to make sure that it's not a $2 million bite that they have to take, that it could be a 200,000 instead of 2
Yes,
million.
sir. That's correct.
Okay. So that it, so compact impact. Okay.
The governor did commit the $2 million
$2 million.
to the hospital.
Okay. The executive branch, there was also funding for GCC and UOG capital improvements projects that was passed by the legislature, in which we appropriated debt service. It was supposed to come out of
TEFF again?
no, Federal Highway. I mean, yeah,
TEFF.
no. It was supposed to. No. I thought it wasn't the liquid fuel tax, Territorial Highway Fund for UOG and GCC. The UOG,
500,000.
yeah, right,
Coming from legislative.
yeah. But the executive branch shows 100,000 from the highway fund, but the annual debt service for UOG for requirement is 278. Do we have a status on that borrowing at GCC by any chance?
The GCC
Have they?
USDA loan?
Yeah.
They're still in the process.
So they haven't drawn down.
It's not even been approved.
Okay, out of the feds.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
But this year, I can't remember, I think it was the chief, there was a significant payment to GCC of about $1 million plus out of, and that was from the 2013 model.
right. But I think that was from a separate appropriation out of here, out of the high.
Yeah.
Hot,
It was a very high payment.
Yeah.
It was in excess of $1 million.
yes, yeah, that's correct. But that wasn't for capital improvement. That was for operations. Yeah, tourist attraction fund. Yeah, okay. And the same, Lester, for UOG. Do you have any info on where they're at on that borrowing?
Yeah, the university is much closer. They've actually been waiting for a response from USDA Washington, D.C.
Okay.
They've already gotten regional approval from the Honolulu office.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually took place, I think, in December. So there's a requirement for, believe it or not, the USDA doesn't have the staff to draws. Like if you're building your house and the contractor has the footings, foundation, walls, roof, incremental payments, they're actually not. They're telling us they're not equipped to be able to do that. So they're asking the university to go out and seek bridge financing to be able to effectuate the Student Services Center
Right.
and the engineering building
Addition.
completion. So there's been a bunch of revisions and correspondence back and forth with the USDA, and ultimately they're going to probably require the university to find a bridge financing entity.
Okay.
So this is a process that's ongoing. We don't see it having any closure in the near future, simply because of the requirement and probably the added cost to the university.
Okay. All right. Okay. So those are the cost elements of our additional debt service requirements. I guess for the record, the debt service payments will increase from the FY 2014 of 69,681,962, and the FY 15 payment will total approximately 80,999,542, for an increase of an additional $11.3 million in our public debt service for FY 15 over FY 14. So, any other questions on the public debt schedule? If not, we'll go ahead then and proceed to the next item on the agenda, which is the tourism update, and we're pleased to have Ms. Anasted with us this afternoon.
Hafade and good afternoon. My name is Anna Sid. I'm Research and Statistics Analyst 2 with Guam Visitors Bureau, representing Ms. Debbie Phillips, the Research Manager who is currently off island. A total of 1,337,665 visitors came to Guam in fiscal year 2013, up 5.3% from fiscal year 2012's 1,270,161. Japan and Korea were our main visitor markets. Other source markets posting increases over the same fiscal year period include China, Europe, and Russia. Fiscal year arrivals to Guam through the second quarter of 2014 drew 693,394 arrivals, down marginally 1.9% from the same period last year. Japan arrivals during this period slid 10.4% to 447,209,000. Positive uptick from Korea continued, posting a 24.7% rise with 141,592 arrivals. Other notable increases were recorded from Taiwan, up 7.7%, China increasing 31.7%, and Russia with a 136.2% surge. The top three challenges from Japan for fiscal year 2014 are a strong domestic travel, coupled by the devaluation of the Japanese yen, the increase of the consumption tax on April 1st, 2014 from 5% to 8%. 3, continuous complaints regarding the arrival and departure processes handled by the Customs and Border Patrol. 4, potential expansion of school trips with DOE's assistance. And 6, decreased seat capacity from the Narita Tokyo Airport. For Korea, in fiscal year 2013 and calendar year 2013, we saw unprecedented growth with 232,850 arrivals and 245,655 respectively. The trend is expected to continue during fiscal year 2014 and calendar year 2014, provided the elements that made 2013 a banner year for Korean arrivals visitors remain in place. These include earlier release of Japanese blocked hotel rooms, opening up inventory for Korean visitors, and the addition of 2 weekly regular scheduled flights by Korean Air direct from Busan, Korea's second largest city. Additionally, Jeju Air added a second flight to its daily flight service from Incheon. China posted an increase of 42.9% more visitors over the previous fiscal year's first quarter. Seasonal charter flights are scheduled as Guam's aggressive market plan continues. Additional charter flights are planned for the low travel period. We received confirmation that a total of 38 direct charter flights from Beijing are scheduled between June next month and through December of this year. The charter flights will yield 8,550 more seats. Since the announcement by the Department of Homeland Security's Parole Authority approval of Russian visitors, effective January 15, 2012, Guam welcomed 7,815 visitors. In the first quarter of fiscal year 2014, Russian visitors totaled 3,303, representing a 144.1% increase compared to the same period last year. Direct weekly flights from Khabarovsk and Vladivostok began in November 2013. Last month, Oran Air added 3 additional Russian cities, specifically Kamchatsky, Sakhalin, and excuse me if I can't pronounce this properly, but I'm reading it as Vladivostok. GVB has been conducting quarterly exit surveys with Russian visitors with the assistance of ground handlers. All surveys were partially interview administered as well as self-administered. Upon completion of the surveys, Q-Mark interviewers double-check each questionnaire for consistency and completeness. While the respondent is present, the overall average prepaid spend per person is $2,603.50, while the mean average on-island spend per person is $1,596.13, with an overall mean average length of stay at 13.6 days. The fiscal year 2014 forecast has been set at 1,350,164 visitors. That would be a 0.9% increase from fiscal year 2013. To date, we have reached 62% of the projected fiscal year 2014 arrivals goal.
Any questions? The concern, of course, and I know you touched on it, on the decrease in the Japanese.
Yes.
As a percentage, we're seeing the decrease, and slight as it may be. And you mentioned like 4 factors that influence that decrease. Now, is that generally, are those the year-to-year factors that affect year-to-year increase, decrease, or are they trend factors that we see throughout?
They're actually, Senator, trend factors at this point in time. Beginning April 1st, the consumption tax played a heavy part on our decreased arrivals from Japan. You're looking at a 5% consumption tax up to 8%. So during the months leading up to the increase in the consumption tax, we saw, if anything, double-digit decreases from Japan. A lot of, from what we've heard, is that a lot of the visitors were putting off travel. A lot of Japanese were putting off travel. They were instead using the money to purchase high-ticket items such as cars, appliances, because they would prefer to purchase those items before the hike in the tax took place. In light of that, what a lot of the multinational corporations in Japan did is they decided, larger companies decided to give their employees increased salaries to try to compensate for the consumption tax hike. That's more or less for the larger companies.
I see.
So we're hoping in just arrivals as of yesterday, we actually saw Japan trending at about 11%
Increase.
to date. Yeah, as of yesterday's arrivals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. 11? What was that? For the month? A minus.
Okay, on the second page of your report here, I'm looking down at the visitor industry statistics. Am I seeing that correctly, that as compared to the year-to-date or the calendar year-to-date 2013 and 14, that there's a $6 million increase in the hotel occupancy tax?
That is correct. Senator, over the past course of months, we've actually seen increased tax collections for the TAF. Taking, for example, in April, the tax collections that were reported for April was over $3 million compared to 2.7 April of 2013. So we've been seeing actually double-digit increase for the last 3-4 months in hotel occupancy tax collections.
Is that an increase due to increased rates or increased collections? John?
I believe there's an increase in hotel room rates.
There have been an
Yeah,
increase?
we've been recording an increased hotel room rates.
Okay.
The base rate has gone up.
Yes, it has.
Oh, okay.
That was 2013 TAF Savannah year, the highest.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So it's not necessarily new bodies, it's just
The rate.
better
Rate of
pricing.
the hotel room, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
there better collection, John, now, since I raised the question about whether or not they're paying their hotel occupancy tax? Of course.
Everybody's coming in on day.
Some of that money's pushed to go to Pensacola, you know? We had, I know, but we had a special provision that hotel occupancy tax that we found that hadn't been paid for the last several years. We wanted to, when it's collected, we wanted it to go there.
Okay.
So I guess I'll have to ask, I'll send a FOIA asking how much from that collection set.
John's pretty good. You can just send him a letter. He's getting pretty good at just answering letters. It's the other John we have to worry about.
He's not here yet.
He's not here yet. He's over at Gita.
Just as a, so I got corrected. Why would we issue reports where the comparison isn't a comparison? Yeah, the one is a calendar year to date and fiscal year to date. If we really should have something uniform, so that I don't think that there's a $6 million increase, because it wasn't.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? At the top, you have for 2013 you have a CY to date, but then in the next column you have fiscal year to date, which adds an additional 3 months to the comparison, and it's not. I'm just trying to figure out why you would do that. It would seem really not accurately represented.
Well, if you look at the column on the top, then.
Yeah, but you have to look at it.
But you have to look at, yeah, on the
but you
first
can't
one,
say-
it looks like, wow, yeah, that's true.
Maybe the question, you can answer the question, how are we doing tracking for top line collections? With this as the FY, how are we tracking to meet what our revenue projection was for last year?
How we
They don't have
tracking?
that information, I'm sorry.
No, actually, yeah. I mean, I have a statement here. Well, what we're doing based on our, we've actually projected, at GBB, we actually projected hotel occupancy taxes based on our arrival projections. So for fiscal year 2013, unaudited, we totaled $28,606,196, which exceeded the projected $26.5 million that GVB came up with. So anticipated collections for 2014 are between 28.9 and 30.8 million.
And we, in the budget, how much did we put? 28?
It's increased to about $1 million, I think. Yes, increased. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry. There was an increase in the budget on the projection for 14, and it totaled, I think it's about another million on top of that.
Right, that's
And
correct.
so it's about 29 million plus.
See, would have been tracking if that additional 1 million wasn't there. But right now, it's just a little lower than.
It's just a little. That's right. Okay.
Got aggressive.
Yeah.
Just a little.
And that was
Just a little bit.
just a little bit. And we admit that was a legislative
No, I did.
estimate.
All the
other-
governments, the government.
All the others were the executive branch estimates.
We're all in it together.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, 29.9. The FY15 budget estimate is 29.9.
Oh, for 15.
Yeah,
15, yeah.
yeah. Okay.
But 14 was
Was
when we.
somewhere,
we were-
yeah.
Yeah, it was increased by $1 million, I believe.
Okay. Any other questions on the tourism numbers? If not, we'd like to go ahead and move on to the employment update and maybe ask Gary to give us his perspective on what we can look forward to.
Since this packet was prepared, it includes the December 2013 current employment report, but the March 2014 report just came out and was just passed out. Before I go into that, there's two other related sources of information that have recently come out. One is the economics census information, which gives us a longer-term trend in the economy, that the overall revenue from the 5-year period from the 2007 to the 2012 census increased by 7.7 billion for businesses, which is just under 24% increase. Overall payroll costs went up about 17% for that 5-year period. Employment went up, but a much smaller percentage, 2.3% over a 5-year period. These numbers are not adjusted for inflation. If you adjusted for inflation, depending what you use, if you use a GDP deflator or a consumer price index, the percent increase on the revenue would decline, but still be significant revenue growth. So that covers through 2012.
Gary, just for the record,
Sure.
The economic red, the source of that.
The economic census is done by the U.S. Department of Commerce, Census Division, and they have a contract with the Guam Department of Labor, and they mail the survey from their processing headquarters to Guam employers, and the local labor department did some follow-up and coordination work.
Okay. And the response rate on those surveys?
It was above 90%.
Above 90%. Okay.
It's well above the national average.
All right. Okay. That's good information. Thank you. You may proceed.
Okay. So and I believe it was similar for the prior year 5-year period. So it shows a pretty long-term trend of growing revenue for the island of Guam, in contrast to some other insular areas that haven't done quite as well. The latest information in the March 2014 employment report shows that, again, employment is growing, but by less than 1% a year, whereas the revenues, the average weekly earnings in the last from March 2013 to 14 grew by 4.1%, and the average weekly earnings increased by 5.5%. So that's probably more relevant in terms of the size of the economy and the tax revenue than the growth of employment. But growth of employment is also an important issue because the personal income taxes are based on employment. A couple other points I want to make is the largest growth is in the construction industry, gained just over 1,000 jobs in the latest 1-year period. Last year, I rang the alarm of concern that the decline in the federal contracts could impair that trend and actually cause a downturn in construction, because the trend was in 2010 we had 370 million in federal contracts, 2011 244, 2012 it declined to 137, and then in 2013 it declined to 49 million. But in the last few months of the fiscal year up through May 14, we've already seen a total of 232 million in DoD contracts issued. So that's providing some encouragement that construction could continue expanding. And I think the longer term is based on the contracts and the funds available that it will see continued moderate expansion. But with any particular quarter, depending on what projects are completed and starting, you could see some variation in the trend going forward.
But we can anticipate the government that DoD contracts
based on the 2014 NDA, because the amount that was allocated is $614 million just for this, for NDA 2014. Obviously, 2015 is 128 proposed, so that drops quite a bit, but just for this fiscal year alone, or this calendar year, we're looking at 614 million.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. And I forgot the source, but there was a high-level DoD source that indicated that they were planning to contract that $600 million this fiscal year. So to the extent that those get contracted and underway, that could contribute to expanded construction. But keep in mind also that some of the major projects have just been completed, the Navy Hospital, and the Regional Medical City will soon be completed, as well as the Dusatani. So to some extent, these projects will be replacement for existing projects, and additionally some expansion and construction, but some of it will be to replace current projects that are being commenced or finished off.
Right, so it wouldn't be a $600 million growth in the economy.
That's correct.
Or growth for an expenditure. It'll be replacement plus whatever additional cost increases that could occur in the projects and so forth.
And also construction on Guam at 7,000 is getting close to employees, and March 2014 is getting close to a record that we haven't seen since the boom period of the 90s. The peak of much of the 90s, it was between 8 to 10,000. The peak was 12,000. So this is above 10% of the total employment on the island in the construction industry currently. The average in the U.S. is closer to 5% or 6% of the economy. So we're at a high level of construction relative to the size of the economy and historically. Of course, it's far below the expectations that were created by the build-up plans.
Gary, do you see a difference in the mix of this total employment? For example, a difference in the mix of local construction workers versus H2 construction workers?
Yes, two things. One, you mentioned the difference in the mix. That's partly accounts for the increase in the average weekly pay and earnings, is a change in the percentage employment mix with the higher private sector industry, or higher paying private sector industry. As that sector grows, that brings up the average. So part of it is a change in the mix, part of it is due to increased hours, and part of it is due to increased hourly earnings. And all three combine to increase the total payroll. The mix of H2s, yeah, in the peak of the 90s, I believe it was in March 91, there was the total of 12,000 construction workers on Guam, and half of them, about 6,000, were H2s. Now out of the 7,000 construction workers on Guam, a little over 1,000 are H2 workers. So we probably have the historically high percent of resident, and including Micronesian, which are non-resident aliens, workers in the construction industry of a variety of categories: local, H2s, green card holders, and but the non-H2 is the majority of the construction industry at this point. And I think the trend going forward with the buildup is that in the new impact statement, that the percent of the H2 workers component would be much lower than was originally planned due to the more spread out nature of the construction growth.
And Gary, am I reading this correctly? So based on the December 2013 and the one that you provided, March 2014, that the total private sector hourly, the average hourly earnings went up about 70 cents an hour?
Yeah. That's about 4%. And then also when I was looking at the March report from BBMR on the revenues, I kind of compared the use that as an indicator of the economy as well. And the comparing of the revenue on fiscal year to date, the total general fund revenue, just roughly from my visual calculations, was up around 9%. But for the first six, or through March, the first 6 months of the fiscal year, the withholdings from payrolls were up about roughly in the range of 5%, which seems to be roughly consistent with the employment report. The corporate profits were up much larger, about 14%. And the broadest measure of the economy, gross receipts tax, were surprisingly done surprisingly well, up 14 million, or roughly 13% for the first 6 months of fiscal year 14 compared to 2013. So it looks like the data from several different sources is fairly consistent.
Collections.
There was one question, Gary. He was talking about total private sector. I was looking at the amount that we have for total Gov Guam. Went up about 27 cents. Did we take into account the Hague increases in that?
This is as of the payroll that includes the 12th of March. So I'm not sure that the pay increases were what the timing of that pay period was. I think it's after that, after the 12th of March. This one was
that
up.
Didn't seem like that.
This one was up about 25 cents an hour from the prior year at the same time. So I don't think the full impact has been reached yet.
Okay.
Just want to know if there's a correlation in the GRT and the construction activity, as well as a increase or spike in license renewals with revenue tax.
I know there's increases in on the construction industries for the last several fiscal year. That looking at the data based on reporting, I see that there's an increase there on the construction industry. As far as the business license, I need to go back and get to the construction area at DPW, because they're normally the ones that issue those licenses.
Okay.
Morrison, we were able to pull up some data on that. In FY 2013, from the Guam Contractors License Board, there were 113 new applications. In 2012, new license. Oh, I'm sorry. So that was the number that we had for 2013. New license application through May 5th at the Guam Contracts License Board, about 93 new applications for licenses.
I can just elaborate that on a bit. Division of Accounts does have a breakout of gross receipts by revenue category, and it does show increases in GRT in the construction category. Business licenses do provide some rough indication if there's a lot of additional construction or other activity or expectation of activity, more people get licenses, but it's a pretty rough indicator, because a lot of people will get licenses but not actually do work, and people get licenses to be Avon ladies and so on. So it isn't the most precise measure of actual activity.
Yeah.
Gary, maybe Gary or perhaps someone else can answer this. Last year we went through a series of sequestration impacts by federal government. Now, based on the funding from last fiscal year versus this fiscal year, are you seeing a significant impact in terms of revenues coming from federal government sources?
One of the major sources of revenue from the federal government is food stamps. That's been cut because there was the eligibility requirements, I believe, have been tightened up a little bit, as well as there was a temporary increase in the benefit amounts to stimulate the economy, which that temporary phase has passed. So that's declined. I can only speak anecdotally. Generally, some of the federal grants are tightened up and cut a little bit because of the sequestration. The federal employment has not expanded, so I view it more as a dampening on growth. But on Guam, because of the increase in the DoD construction, I think that's going to outweigh the tightening up on the social service programs.
Gary, we've been having this discussion about the increase in the minimum wage. What effect do you think it might have on the economy? Because we're looking at 2015, and I'm not sure where the legislature is, but, if the possibility, if it does go through, could you maybe just speak to that from an economic perspective?
The past experiences is that it didn't cause any material change in total employment. The concept is generally with higher wages that would cause employers to restrict their employment, but the caveat in economics theory is all other things equal, but usually all other things are not equal. The main two other things are not equal is generally the minimum wage increases come into effect when there's a growth in the economy, so it's likely to cut into the growth slightly, as opposed to cause declines in the employment. The other thing is that increased wages are spent elsewhere in the economy, generating revenue and employment elsewhere in the economy. So I view it more as a redistribution within the economy, that those at the minimum wage would receive higher wages and their income and welfare would be significantly improved. And those that were well above the minimum wage would pay slightly more in prices and create a redistribution. The impact on tourism, there's factors going in both directions, and it's ambiguous what the effect would be. On one hand, there's some indication with the exchange in the change in the exchange rate that when Guam prices went up, tourists spent less to accommodate the price increase, but in less in dollars, but they actually spent more in yen. So that could also apply to the minimum wage increase. So it kind of depends on the elasticity of the demand. That is, how did they respond to increases in hotel rates? So to some extent, they might end up spending more money on Guam, and to the extent that there's an increased flow of funds to the island, that would benefit the economy. To the extent that they spent less, that would be detrimental to the economy. And I suspect both will happen in some cases, and whether it's a net positive or negative is pretty hard to tell. Also, some people, when they see the increase of the amount to 1010, it's a large percentage of the minimum wage, but it's phased in over a number of years, and over a number of years the wage levels would be expected to increase somewhat anyway, so the impact won't be as dramatic as it might first appear.
And Gary, I guess the choice made, when you have increasing economic growth, of course, is the choices that are made by the businesses with these increased profits is, either you invest them in your company with upgrades, expansions, and so forth, or you just increase your distribution of the profits. But if you have an increase in your costs, you spread that out over a larger group of people who spend that money. If you and reinvested it in upgrades and so forth. You'd buy equipment off island, and so whatever you spent, a large percentage of that gets shipped off island. Whereas if you reinvested them in the employees, almost 100% of that stays on Guam and gets spent on Guam. So the circulation and the impact of that dollar invested in employees may be a little bit, may have a greater impact than distribution of profits in some other fashion. Would that be a correct assessment?
It could. And generally, employers try to, when a cost goes up, try to automate, and that could involve reorganization that's more efficient or use of software and computers. And to some extent, that would reduce the demand for labor in the short term, but it would also increase productivity. And with higher productivity, that allows for higher wages. Another factor that's often not really noticed is people talk about higher costs when due to minimum wage, but if there's higher business activity levels going on in the economy, that the fixed cost doesn't change. So with a higher level of business activity, like in the hotels, the fixed cost per unit goes down. So some of the costs per unit are going up and others are declining.
You're welcome.
I didn't ask the question.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Yes,
May I,
yes.
please? The governor is also proposing a slight decline in GRT? Anyway, the governor is proposing a slight decrease. How would that affect on a going forward basis? Should it also be passed? Yeah.
Well, one concern is it would reduce the government revenues, which are always constrained and insufficient to pay all of the obligations. The rationale for it was to help some of the businesses that had higher wage costs to offset some of those. But if there was a cut in the rate across the board, that rate would be applied equally to all companies across the board, whereas some companies are almost not affected by the increase in the minimum wage, and so they would have a windfall, whereas other companies that had a larger percent of their employees below the minimum would not see sufficient tax savings to offset the increase in wages.
And related to that question is, can you quantify based on what the net effect of that reduction would be in dollars to the GRT?
Well, I haven't quantified it, but based on, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, if you want to.
Or has John?
I just had a question.
Did the other John quantify?
Okay.
When you say quantify, meaning the increase in
no,
just the
net decrease that the governor is proposing.
I think if you look at the proposed FY15 and you apply what you can expect to get from the GRT, and I think it's close to about 2.9 or 13 million, I believe. When we were looking at it, was that was about
13 million reduction?
Reduction, yes.
Reduction. But that still wouldn't have covered the assumed increase on the minimum wage. In fact, Gary, so many of the large contractors that construction contractors have to follow the Davis-Bacon, right? And so a lot of them are high, so they wouldn't, as for the minimum wage increase, it really wouldn't impact them.
But they would get the windfall.
From the 20 basis points, from the 20 basis points on the.
That's correct.
In the revenue.
When the president signed the executive order to make it $10.10 an hour for federal contracts going forward, the newspaper asked us to look at that, and we did. Almost all of the occupations in both under the Davis-Bacon, which applies to payment of workers under federal contracts, as well as the Service Contract Act, which applies to contracted employees. almost all of the occupations are quite a bit above 10 an hour already. So there will be some that will benefit from it, but on a percentage basis, it's going to be fairly small, and it's going to be on new contracts as they occur.
So it'd be a lot of the smaller businesses, or would it?
It's just
Service-
it's
service
based more on the type of industry that where the business has a lot of lower wage earners, such as security guards, protective services, housekeeping, cleaning, fast food,
Restaurants?
restaurants, things of that nature.
Gary, the finishing up of the projects, such as the Guam Regional Medical Center and Dusatani Hotel, will require, of course, employees now to fill those facilities. In your review of the current, skills available within the Government Guam workforce, you think that these jobs are going to be filled from local residents, or you think there's going to be a need to go off island?
I think there'll be a combination. People don't sometimes appreciate how dynamic and well the free market works in attracting workers, and adding one significant hotel is relatively small compared to what Guam accomplished in the 90s, where we added a number of hotels in a short time period, and that's going to be relatively easy. Of course, there may be challenges with certain specialized occupations. The other thing, too, is the unemployment rate at this time is, the last number was 10%. So we have a lot of people that are unemployed and out of the labor force that could be brought in. So in terms of just general labor, there's no shortage. There's plenty of availability. In the medical field, a lot of them can be found on Guam. But when it gets into particular specialties, and the fact that many of those that want to work in the medical field on Guam that are already working full-time and overtime probably can't work much more. So that would require people being brought in from somewhere in particular cases. I don't know what the exact percentage would be.
One of the things we saw in the past was that especially in the service industries and in the tourism industries, that we saw a lot of employees holding two jobs.
Yes.
How do you see that? Is that changed with the recent growth and whatever growth we've seen in our tourism industry, or are you still seeing that that's still a fairly...
I think we looked at the numbers once. I think it was around 5 to 10% overall of people that had two jobs on Guam. So it was smaller numbers than we thought, although it happens probably more in some industries than others. It seems like it's fairly stable, but it may change. I haven't looked at the numbers lately.
But just when you compare the two reports that you have attached, the December and the March figures for the hotel industry, I see that the average has gone up like a quarter, 25 cents or 27 cents. I mean 9 cents between the 2 months, the 3-month period. But the number of hours worked has gone down, and the weekly earnings have gone down. And that's even before.
Yeah. The hours vary somewhat, usually on demand at the time of the payroll survey. The hours are probably the most quick to change. If the business is a little slow, they cut hours. And if business picks up, they increase hours. Only if a business picks up quite a lot do they start hiring more. There's also some changes in ownership of hotels during that time period.
And I've seen that the number of employees has actually gone up. Or no, it's gone down.
Yeah,
46,
yes, slightly, yeah.
Slightly.
yeah, it's gone down about 60 people. Seasonal, and the
Over the long,
Golden Week
yeah.
was what, October? Okay, but what would be the high periods in hotel industry in the first part of the fiscal year? October, November, December.
Year-end, New Year period? Golden Week hasn't been golden for years. It's actually a very expensive period to travel. Most consumers try to keep away from traveling during Golden Week. So it hasn't been golden in, I would say, over 10 years. Seasonal highs usually for travel are year-end, New Year, of course, the Chinese New Year period is quite heavy, and the summer months of July, August, and September.
that seasonality, the December in the hotel industry is probably a little stronger because of the seasonal issue.
Gary, I guess to kind of capsulize and the discussions is that we are seeing continued growth, that the growth in the construction industry, even with the new NDAA authorizations and release of these contracts, will most likely replace outgoing contracts. And so we won't get the huge bump that we think will happen in the construction industry because of the fact that we've had these other jobs winding down.
I'm looking at if the buildup and the Japan funds are released and the schedule that was just released and the new impact statement is followed, that would cause construction to go from 7 to maybe 10,000 jobs.
Okay.
In maybe a couple of years. That's the ballpark that we're looking at.
So the impact will be a couple years from now versus
Well,
immediately.
it's been ramping up slightly, and I suspect it would continue to ramp up with possibly some variations along the way as contracts are finished or started.
All right.
The projection in the impact statement is that there would be a gradual increase over the years.
And the peak would be around 2020?
I think it was 2028.
20, yeah.
28.
Yeah. I thought it was like 20, 21, 20.
21 maybe the peak,
Yeah.
28 the finish.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Sorry.
Right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
We'll be old by then.
All right. Any other questions for Gary?
You also mentioned that as some of the projects are completed, like the Dusatani Hotel and the Regional Medical Center, that will add to employment in industries other than construction. So that should support somewhat of an increase in employment.
Okay. All right. Okay. We'll go ahead then and proceed with the 5-year forecast presented by Mr. Rios.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the back of page 5, or sheet 5, you have the BBMR's 5-year revenue and expenditure forecast. If you look at the first column there, you have the fiscal year 2014. That is based on the Budget Act, Public Law 320.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Ms. Rios, just for the record, I know that there were 2 forecasts. There was an initial one and a revised one.
That's correct. The first sheet, I think you have the correct sheet.
Yes,
Senator.
yeah. I just wanted the rest of the group to know.
I was looking at it, and you did include the make work pay credit or debt.
Yeah.
That's at 5.5. It was changed from, because the previous year we used 5 years, and I think it was like 4 million, something like that. But that's correct. You got the correct sheet. That's, as long as it's the same sheet that's attached to everybody's, right?
Yes, that's what I'm asking. So
I don't know.
it's the
Did
March
you-
27th.
Did you guys,
Yeah, so when
you
Mr.
guys
Rios,
included that? Okay.
yeah, so when Mr. Rios is reading it, it's the March 27th letter that we got from him. So just for everybody's reference. Okay? All right.
Okay, and so fiscal year 2014 is based on the Budget Act, Public Law 32068, which shows total revenues of 591 million. On the fiscal year 2015, it was based on the executive budget that was submitted to the legislature with 651.7 million in revenues. For the revenues from 2016 through 2018, it assumes a 3% growth rate. With expenditures, it also assumes a 3% growth rate with the exception of education, health, safety, and the component units. We used a 4% assumption there. A higher, yes, that's correct.
And they take up, the rest of us take up so small, that's 7%
Mhm.
of the budget.
Yeah. And so with the, also in the expenditures, it includes the debt service for the BPT, both A, B, and C, and then it accounts also for the increase. I think there's another increase back down in 2017. It also includes the payment for the make work paid debt. This was I think was back in 2008 or 9 and 10, I think, where there was there was an over appropriation of that money, and this is the payback of about 22 million, I believe, too.
I guess it's, John, maybe you might just want to provide the historical data on the MIG work, John Camacho, on the MIG work pay.
Oh, okay. Basically, we received some advance payment from the from the IRS, and as a result of those advance payment for the two tax years, I believe 2009 and 2010, I believe we had to return roughly, I think, about $22 million of the total amounts that we received for those two tax years.
We had not made any of that at the time. John, is there?
So that's, yeah. So basically, we appropriated the money at that time, but really we had to return the 22 million. So this is where the correction, we're making the paybacks from 2015 through 2018.
Right. And the is there a signed MOU to that schedule?
We have basically we're talking with the IRS right now, and basically this is the proposed pay of the 22 million is to spread it out for the next four fiscal years, beginning with 2015. We haven't signed any MOU yet, but we're basically getting close to that point where we're gonna sign that MOU.
Okay. What should we do if we don't have an MOU signed by the time we're ready to pass this budget? What would the administration's recommendation to the legislature with regards to how would we reflect that then in the final budget if there's no MOU signed at that time?
We're very expecting very soon to get, and we anticipate that before this budget FY15 goes through, we'll be able to get that signed.
Okay.
That MOU.
But to answer your question, if it's not signed, then it would increase the liabilities on the audit. Maybe if you can, is that correct?
I think so. My question is more of a technical question. Why is it, if you're going to pay it back, I understand it's an expenditure, but isn't it really because we had more revenue in the past And shouldn't it be offset against revenue as like a bracket?
Like an offset.
As a bracket as
right.
opposed to below the line to show that the net revenue is declining?
But it was appropriated and spent already. And
No,
so
no,
that's
no,
why
but you're
I understand what you're
Yeah,
what
but
you're
you're
saying.
paying it back,
Uh-huh.
okay? And it's going to be coming back net of, net, right? We're not going to really write a check to them for 5.5, right? Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So therefore, Section 30 should have a line up above Section 30 and show the 5.5 as a bracket to
Yes.
show it net, rather than the way he's presenting it now. That's what my comment.
No, I agree. It's just like the tax credits.
Yes, like the tax credits, correct. Okay, so we're in agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's just that, okay. For the
Same impact.
Yeah, same impact. It's just that, but it's more appropriate to think on, that it's really net of Section 30, as opposed to us writing a check.
Correct.
So when approved, what we'll do in the budget is we'll show it as a set aside
Yeah.
for the Section 30.
Are we going to do that for all the tax credits? As a,
That's
se-
my next
as a set asides against the revenue,
Yeah.
the revenue source that the credit is being claimed against?
Well, I think what we've done is all the laws that were passed that provided tax credit, we've showed it, I believe we showed it at first, and then it was already included as part of the revenues already, so we never showed it again. And that's, maybe DOA can maybe elaborate on that point, but it is already shown on the revenue. So we kind of show it on the budget, but then after that, we remove it. That's, the revenues, no, the revenue numbers have the, those set-asides in there.
But it's bottom line.
It's bottom line, yes, it's bottom line now. Yeah.
Like tax refunds.
Right, right.
Okay, Mr. Reese?
Okay, and then that's pretty much, I mentioned already the assumptions out to 2016 through 18.
John, with your provision for tax refund, you're looking at a minor reduction to $118 million in 2015, and then it continues to increase between 2016 and 2018.
Right.
Is that based on the number of individuals that would be in the employment roles?
I believe I used the same projection with the increase through 2016 through 18.
Oh, so you just applied it?
Yeah, I just applied it
4%,
there.
5%.
I mean, the numbers really,
No, but
you know,
then
you
again-
notice, I think Senator Respicio had that question, why is it such an even number? Well, it's not gonna,
No, but then, okay, from your perspective, DBMR, you just applied the same adjustment, but from rev and tax.
that's where we
Is that what you're looking at in terms of anticipated increase in tax refund provision? John?
For that fiscal years, I guess they're applying a percentage, certain percentage every fiscal year that will be set aside for the paying of the income tax refund. I believe John is, we're looking at using like 27, 28%, I guess, for every dollar that's collected.
Okay.
John, Revenue and Tax, we had a meeting this morning on the budget. And one of the questions was, or one of the things that the auditors brought to our attention is that there's about 3,000 more tax refund returns being filed, and primarily because of the EITC. And that there's the number of the EITC is continuing to grow. Could you speak to that, about where we are with EITC? And is that number truly growing? Because they've asked for some queries of you, how much of the number of tax returns, how many, are EITC related, and that we're seeing a higher trend, with virtually minimal income, with dependents, you can get a significant amount of EITC.
Yes, I believe there there's a growth in the EITC on the number of qualifying taxpayers. I believe in the last, based on tax years, I think there's a growth of roughly 3 to 4,000 times. I'm just taking it back. At least there's a growth of $3 to $4 million a year, but the number of qualifying eligible for the EITC have grown also at the same time. And some of the costs may be the increase every year. There's an increase of the qualifying for the EITC. It's something that we really need to look at, because it really went, as far as I remember, back in the late 90s, from a $10 million, $12 million EITC now to about close to maybe even $50 million showing, and eligible are looking at even 18,000 out of the 48,000 that are receiving refunds. So there's the percentage, and it's something that we're going to really look at. If you really look at it, it's looking at maybe 50% of what we pay out on refunds is up to EITC. So or close to and not to count the ACTC, because that's a reimbursement that we get every year. But if you take out the ACTC, you're looking already at basically a 50% payout on EITC. So it's growing, and I guess it even went from qualifying 2 to 3 in the last several years. So we're looking at it, and we're seeing where did this the increase in roughly 2 to 3,000 eligible individuals, I think, for the last several years. But it's something that we want to look at and see if these are basically people that are qualified and are eligible for the and I guess everybody knows it's an unfunded liability. So and a lot of these taxpayers that qualify at the same time don't contribute to the coffer, meaning there's no withholding, which means that they work up, certain a number of hours, and they qualify for these things. And when somebody raised what would this do to the increase in the minimum wage, I don't think it really matter, because of the single person with no dependent, basically it's already over the threshold amount. So people that are earning minimum filing single, that are within 25 or 55, they won't be able to qualify because of the amount that the amount they're already earning basically is way over the threshold. It would affect people that are basically filing joint returns. It may help them, or it may not help them, depending on the bracket they're in. So it is a concern that we're looking at, and as it's grown for the last several years, I think right now it's either in the high 40s or even in the early 50s, 50 million, meaning so.
So my question would be, is the estimate for the tax refund possibly low right now?
Well, if you look at the provisions for refund, it's within that range, and I think we've been always using like 27, 28% of what's totally collected. So, and the other thing that I want to put out is we're pretty much caught up. In other words, we paid up all the prior years when we borrowed the bond, so we're only looking at a range of 120 million, 100 and something that, but we don't really pay that everything out in one fiscal year, because people come in later. So except now there's a lot of people filing early because we're paying out the refunds early. But even with that, even if we say it's the total refunds for 120, not everybody will come in. In other words, at one fiscal year.
John, we kind of took a look at the amount of income tax refunds paid per calendar year for calendar year on a fiscal year basis, and it appears that we may be paying out close to $140 million for FY 2000 or calendar year 2000, tax year 2013. Based on the reports that we got, I think we kind of went back and tried to reconcile those payments, took out prior years, most especially those showing interest payments and so forth. So, do you have an idea of how much we've paid out for maybe 2012, 2013?
I believe in 2012 and prior, so far I think we paid about 67 million for FY14.
FY14.
67 of that, I believe we paid 48 million for 2013. So we're about $67 million that we paid out for FY. So if you take the difference between 67 and 48, so that will be the amount that will be for 2012 and prior years.
And prior years.
Yes.
And that's strictly from cash, not from the bond.
Yes,
Strictly-
those are
strictly
from
from cash,
collections.
From collection.
Yeah. Okay. John, in jumping in moving from fiscal year 2015, projecting out into 2016, 17, 18, your base year was your 2015 year,
That's correct.
which shows a almost a $50 million difference between 2012 or 2014 and 2015. Is
correct.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was based on the revenues. If you look at just what the federal government approved, which is the $495 million, most of those projects have a duration of about 720 days.
Mhm.
So a lot of it, you'll start seeing some of that construction now. I think there are some also that were not included, that like the Lockwood, the housing for federal, we'll be seeing it now. So you'll see that in 2 years. I mean, you'll start seeing the revenues come in for the next 2 years on that. That doesn't include, of course, the $114 million in Manizo money that also will be awarded. The last I heard, there was about a little over $100-some million that's still yet to be awarded by the federal government. And that's out of the 500 million that was approved already. In addition to that, we looked at some of the bond money that for DPW and Guam Water Works and Port Authority, because again, that money will be paid here. We're going to start seeing revenues from that. We also looked at the Dusit, the hotel, the impact on that, also with the increase in employment, and we took that into consideration. Of course, the increase in well, that's for GIAA expenditure. There were other private projects they were looking at, also the solar energy project, which was, I believe, $20 to $30 million, I think, and then there's some affordable housing. And then also the increase in jobs for the SRF, the PAC, I think it's PACDEM, that was also included. And then, of course, the new hospital that's going to be completed.
Yes.
When we were reading in sources of revenue, I'm a little concerned about Healthy Futures Fund. The last report that you sent out, John, that we received 3/31, the Healthy Futures Fund looks like it's down about $3 million. In the governor's proposal, we're planning on Healthy Futures Fund providing us 16.2. As of the year to date, this fiscal year to date, ending February 28th, we were at 4. And for the month of February, I saw it was all in brackets. Can you explain why the entire money?
I'm sorry, I didn't bring the report.
Can you just explain why that's all interactive?
This report also, it comes from Department of Administration, just to let you know. So the brackets part, and again, with the forecast and the budget, it's based on a weighted average, 3 to 5, I'm not sure if it's 3 years, weighted average, so it's...
I know last year we got, at this point, by that same day, by the same date in March the 1st, we were almost to 8. Now we're barely making 4.
Yeah, so it's showing a 2.6 million shortfall here based on...
And we're just that would be at a third of a way through the fiscal year. How are we going to get to the 16
Is
when
that
we're
like less
only at 4?
smokers and less drinkers? Huh?
No, because we increased it. And
less cigars, I'm sorry.
There's a decrease. It's the, yes.
Yeah.
John, how much of, how much has been tax credits in my Healthy Futures Fund?
I was going to say, is that net of the tax credits, or?
I don't put the numbers together, but some of the credits are being taken on that funding. Just to let you guys know, there's some credits that under the public law on condemnations for that Lajon, yeah. So yeah, so.
And so how are we going to deal with the pharmaceutical fund and the need to fund that, the hospital operations that this is supposed to come? This is the source of funding the cancer treatment. How are we going to deal with that?
I think the pharmaceutical is based on a percentage of the BPT. That's correct. It's gross receipt tax. But the cancer...
And then the hospital gets money, and so does behavioral wellness. So how are we going to bridge that deficit?
I remember the audit discussion we had was because when they first looked at it, they couldn't figure out why it was so low. And they realized afterwards it was due to the tax credits of LaJohn and some of the others, as John said. So while the revenue is there, the cash is not.
But if the tax should have been paid as a Healthy Futures Fund, is there some way of in accounting to be able to show that?
It was an adjustment was made to figure out, because the entry would be, like in the case of LaJohn, the entry would be debit land, credit revenue.
But Healthy Futures Fund doesn't show that it got any money.
That's right, because what is showing there, that report is based on actual cash. The tax credit, and the tax credit was applied against that category. Therefore, there was no cash. So we have to make it, they had to make a post-closing adjustment to reflect the revenue that was applied, it was against gross receipts, then to reallocate it as an adjustment to Healthy Futures. So the revenue was subsequently adjusted, but instead of it going out in the form of cash, they got a new asset, the land value.
I guess the Vice Speaker, those concern is, so what do we do now that the cash was not collected because we increased our land asset value, but now we still have an obligation for the appropriations made against that cash that should have been collected, instead transferred into an asset.
Well, that's the same discussion we're having right now at the EFSC.
Yes, absolutely.
It's exactly the same discussion, because we were anticipating, because of the real property tax appraisal, that it would increase, and that an appropriation was made to DOE, and that now DOE is left hanging.
Right.
And that's why we have put that cautionary statement in this, that the transfer has not been made, and DOA is saying that it can't be made because there is no cash.
Yet there was no cash in the health insurance reimbursement fund. Section 2718, which was a line item revenue source within the budget that was approved of $3.7 million. The cash was not collected, yet an expenditure was booked against that, and cash was paid out to meet that obligation.
That I don't know.
Well,
So that's not happening. It's not going to happen for him. Or actually, he got assurances from
Yes.
Ms. Manglonia.
Benita said she would completely reimburse
She
it.
said she was going to give.
No, she said she was going to reimburse it, not look at it. She was going to reimburse it, so there was not going to be any loss.
I guess with all these tax credits that have happened over the last 2 years, I know in the hearing that you had, and she made it clear that, of course, we'll be able to match our cash, and the revenues are there anyway. But the reality is, we've been doing it very well in managing our cash situation. But I think that I guess she responded to her when she was there in the hearing, and
So can we just get a verification that all of the allotments as well as appropriations with the allotments released, where the source of funding is the Healthy Futures Fund, have been released and the cash has been transferred to meet those obligations? Can we get some kind? I think that's what the Vice Speaker's looking for, because that's the assurance he got.
that's something I could
Right.
work with you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So John, you think that that jumping off the FY 2015 with a $50 million increase from the year before is reasonable, rational, achievable?
Yes. Yes, I do.
All three? He didn't.
Yes. I mean, you don't feel it? You don't feel it coming? Speaking economy.
Yeah.
Not that I want to
No,
be
but I think
difficult.
we're moving, I mean,
Economy is growing, right?
yeah, it is growing and,
Economy is growing based on Gary's report.
yeah.
I'm just wondering, John, if you look at your projection there
Mhm.
for, there's like a $60 million difference between this fiscal year and next fiscal year, is that correct?
That's what the Senator Pangelinan was saying.
And then,
He's asking
But-
me if it's,
if that's realistic, I know, and then the following year it's 45, and then the following year it's 20 or 25. It's dropping.
Right.
It would seem to me that,
no, my footnote, you gotta read my footnote. My footnote there basically projects the 16 through 18 with a 3% organic growth. And then with the expenditures a little higher for education and public safety and health. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of activity and and these are based on projects that have already been discussed. The federal government has already approved the 2014 appropriation, which is the $500 million, including the $114 million of the MISU. Of course, we're not considering all of that in 2000. That's the Japanese fund. I think they said it was about $2 billion total, but
1.8, 1.9,
1.8, 1.9
of which
billion.
800 million would be spent on Guam or
Approved
something.
the release because I believe a lot of that money was sitting in the Treasury or U.S. Treasury, right?
Mhm.
And so,
Just maybe I can ask you, John, on the tax revenues on future military projects, FY 2016, you estimate
Yeah.
that to be 26 mil,
yeah,
27 in 2017?
and that's and that of course I'll go ahead and adjust in the next 5-year forecast with more real numbers with what the federal government has approved or not.
And so is there any tax revenues for FY 2015?
It's built in.
It's
Into the, that's why you're asking me about the 50-some million. There's some of that that's built in there, but of course 2 years also for 2016. So yes, it is built into the 2015, and that's how I've been doing it the last 2-3 years. Is based on the executive budget, which already includes the PEVs, we have it in there, and then for for some additional, I'll show in a forecast. Now, once we get, like for next year, for 2016, I'll have a more concrete number that I'll plug into the PEVs, show it part of the tax revenues, and then forecast the 17 through 19. With the exception, of course, the debt service payment. I'll use Gita's debt service payments. And
Would you be able to do that for like the 2012 numbers in terms of
2012, the audit, which one, I'm sorry?
Can we go back?
12 is
13.
12 is done already. That's the $30 million surplus. That's
Right.
where we showed the revenues, I think, exceeded. Yeah, the 13, I think, is...
No.
Let me pass this out. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. This is one we continue to track. I'll pass this out to everybody. This only just shows the budget, okay, not the actual yet. And I didn't put in 2014. So you can see what 2012 numbers were and what the budget is. And does everybody have a copy?
One more here. No,
Can you
okay, we'll share.
Okay, so 2012 is the audited number of 596, all right? Okay, 2012, and then the budget as approved is 591. So already that's 2013 budget, okay? And preliminarily, the numbers right now show that that number is higher for 2013, preliminary, but I don't want to say because the income tax adjustment hasn't been made. That's the question why I was posing to John, because that was our discussion this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so that's why I don't want to say what that number is, but unadjusted for income tax, the number is already higher, in the 600s. But if it gets adjusted for income tax, that's, because that's why they're doing that query. So, but when, so then if you go back then to John's number, the 2014 is what, 591, right?
Yes.
Approved budget. So that's already low to begin with. That's already low to begin. Yeah, already, because we're in 2014 now.
Right.
Yeah, and so that, and we know already from a trending point of view and just based on what everything has been said, the economy is growing, okay? And so, but like what you said, whether it's going to grow to 651 in 2015 is, yeah, that's the part we have to. And the one number I do want to ask, okay, is about real property tax, okay? If we, I know I'm shifting, I apologize, and this number doesn't include real property tax, but because remember we had a delay, and if maybe this John could give us an idea where you are in the real property and when will those new reevaluations actually take effect, because remember last year I abstained in that portion because I didn't believe that the revenue was going to be materialized in the TEF.
Yes.
Right? That's where it came from, BJ. It's the TEF last year, I was doubtful. So now we're saying 28, which could be depending of where the real property tax appraisal is.
Just to give an update on the real property appraisal and revaluation, it started in March of this year, and we're midway. Basically, we have a contract that will be completed for all taxable property by August 30 to meet the deadline to issue the preliminary assessment roll to all the mayors out. Right now, we don't have any results as what the values are, but I think by July we should be getting those numbers to see where we at. I know when we had this discussion, we did a rough estimation that it could be as much as 30% of the values would go up, but that we can't say until actually the work is done. So we might be seeing some results in July, and by August 30 it should be completed and ready to basically, if everything goes well, be a preliminary assessment roll will be given out to the entire island, an assessment roll, and at that time, the people of Guam would take a look at their values, and there's basically an appeal process that would be given to all the people of Guam, which is from September 15 to October 15. And at that time, the contracted appraiser will be there to defend any of those disputed values for that particular, it's based for tax year 2013 and moving forward. So that's where we at right now, and hopefully everything goes well. And at the same time, this year we're doing a lot of things on the real property. We published the 2012 delinquent list. We're getting a lot of people to come in and play. We're planning on publishing the 2013 by owner before June 8th of this year. So that would, again, give the people of Guam time to basically come in and basically pay their delinquent. And as you know, the governor mentioned, I guess one of his top 10 for this year is we're looking at a cost of actually doing some auctioning of properties that were deeded to the government, or basically under the law offering basically the adjacent owners of those property that are delinquent for so many years. So that we're basically looking at a procedure set by the Attorney General's office, so that we will follow those procedures and hopefully in our best effort to try and collect more for this particular fiscal year. I know we projected an additional $7 million again, in addition to, I guess, the 21, right? So those are the efforts that we're basically looking at and trying to basically see what we can do to collect more for the Territorial Educational Facility Fund.
John, when you say tax deeded, tax deeded is I guess sometimes a misunderstood term. A tax deeded property is any property that is delinquent after the, I think is it 1 year after the?
Well, that's why we follow the procedures. We've been doing that so many years in the past. We did it for 2012. We're going to do it again for 2013. What basically is that we follow the rules. We publish the delinquent list. Within so many days, we have to publish it again. At the same time, issue a 90-day certified letter to inform the owner that we are taking steps that if you don't pay within this 90-day, which is basically for the 12, we're looking at July 5th. It was published on the paper. So a lot of people are coming in right now, paying their delinquent taxes. So after July 5th this year, we plan to deed those properties again to the government that haven't paid their 2012. At the same time, we're also doing the 13, publishing it basically on June 8th to let everybody know again that you're delinquent. You have to come in and make good on your taxes. So those are the steps that we're basically taking, and there's quite a number of properties that are deeded to the government already based on prior years.
And these are all deeded to the government by virtue of filing at Department of Land Management and then revenue tax?
Yes, those steps are taken every year that we go through the process. In other words, we went through the process for the tax year 12. Every year it starts by itself.
Right.
So like the 12, the 13 will be next year again. We'll do a 90-day. So those are the things that we're doing, and we're finding a lot of people coming in, and hopefully the TFF fund would increase this percentage.
But in order to tax deed this property, you actually have to file, correct?
Yes, these are.
And so how many properties are at this time do you say have been tax deeded to the government? How many parcels?
I don't have the numbers, but we're looking at that right now. We're looking at a series of properties that were deeded by tax year. So basically, we'll be looking at right after we update our procedures. The AG update the procedures for auctioning and offering adjacent owners. Then we'll start looking at that and taking steps to follow the procedure, take steps to actually, again, if we have identified all these properties that will be be either sold to the adjacent owners or auction. Basically, we will publish again that list to make sure that that people can come in and be afforded again and another publication will go out to let them know that we are taking steps and we have received several letters, at least one that I know, that are very interested in these things, that they went through the process of doing research, which what the law requires them to do, and these are the things that we're communicating in other words.
Because the only one of the cases I'm familiar with is the property down in Santa Rita. I mean, that was tax deeded to the government, but then the government went right back and gave it back to the landowners, even though it already had been tax deeded to the government.
Well, basically, the law is still any time the owner can come in and pay everything. In other words, if you haven't paid your property for the last 10 years and you come in with a $10,000 check or whatever that amount is and pay everything, redemption costs, penalties, then what we normally do is we deed the property back. We cancel the deed and give the owner back. Likewise.
But it was determined in that case, in the court case, that the people you deeded it back to didn't own it in the first place because they didn't buy it from the owners.
I'm not familiar with this case. Was this my time?
Yes. You were there. Oh, you've been there for a long time.
Again, is this to the real property procedures,
absolutely,
or is it to the collection procedures?
Because
it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's through the real property procedures from my
understanding. Because I've never heard about somebody. Maybe it's not through real property. Maybe it's through collection process where the tax.
Because actually what was somebody who did research went in and paid the taxes and satisfied those taxes and kept paying those taxes. So I'll forward the case to you.
I'm not aware of that case.
Okay.
I apologize.
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor.
I'm not sure who's going to answer it on this. I'm looking at the front pages with the special revenues. I don't see anything for the limited gaming fund.
Limited gaming.
Is that a revolving?
I know we monitor it in our department. I think was it you, Senator Ogden, that passed a recent, or somebody else passed to appropriating it? Are you curious? Yeah, they're appropriating the funds. So
They said there was almost $1 million in there when you passed that legislation.
yes, because we do monitor it on our side and we communicate with DOA. So I think now that we have the.
But is it reflected in the executive?
No. We've got hundreds of special.
I don't have the information right now, but I can get that information.
Yeah.
But we do monitor the limited gaming tax from all the different. So we have that report and we basically give it to DOA.
Okay.
I think right now it's May, so I think we may have probably maybe we're behind 1 month because every month, so we'll try and update that report. I think I know I gave Chris a report because he asked for it some time ago, back in March.
So that doesn't get reported here, though we're using it to help pay off the GMH loan, right? Isn't that a part of the source of the repayment for the GMH loan?
Yeah.
They got less than $500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand, but it's a source of their repayment. I'm just trying to figure out where it's at in here, and since we're listing the GMH loan as something that we have to pay in that.
Okay.
We have hundreds of special.
They're starting to creep back up. We cleaned a lot of them. Yeah, we had reduced it at one time to about 60, I think. Yes, and so we're seeing the creep.
Does GMH include it in their budget? Do they show that? As
I
money
believe
that they
so.
would- Huh?
I-
As payment for the,
Okay. All
I
right.
think I saw they included the 2 million for the compact impact in their budget for the payment of that. They must have-
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the 5-year forecast?
It's not so much on the forecast, about the issue of the tax credits.
Mhm.
How is, in the bill receives the dawn tax credit, but as you know, there are the MIT tax credits, people are starting to take that, the apprenticeship tax credits, and a few others, and then even residual left on the raceway.
Raceway?
Yeah. And so I guess my question really to you, John, is, was that factored into your 5-year forecast? And
Yeah, because
Even the Cortex tax credits as well.
the Cortex,
well, the Cortex is this number, but it's low.
yeah, but
It's
that's,
low.
That's only the purchase, from the purchase, so we took the difference, because remember,
Yeah,
the
you
tax
have-
credit is the 5 million, the
Yeah.
4.9 million.
The rent for portion of it.
Yes.
And then
then
the purchase, which is the
again.
increase of 3.7 million here, and then I'll show it here.
So, because,
I think there's a separate report, right, for
but
all
Is-
those that are
in
tax
your
credit?
report here, though, in your projection, though, John, you don't show what those tax credits
Credits are.
are. And it would, in the spirit, I think it would, maybe if you could, like I said, even the debt,
Mhm.
that, you could kind of show that number as a bracket, right? Even if you have to
But-
gross it up to come
but-
to the
but
number
it-
you have. So
you know,
that
but-
way we have an idea what we're estimating
Correct.
as tax credits.
Yes.
But it's very, very unpredictable where you're gonna take it, because once you sell these credits, you don't know whether it's gonna
No,
be.
and it could even just be below the line.
No, but what I'm saying, the specific fund, like what we're saying here,
it's the
the healthy
taxpayers,
future funds.
Versus the
their
GRT.
election.
GRT, so it's very hard because,
Yeah.
if you sell it to a person that is in the business of alcohol and tobacco, of course, they're gonna take it, on the healthy future funds. But if you sell it to a general store, then you'll go into the GRT. So again, it's very, very hard to predict where these credits are gonna come down
Well,
Do we,
and when.
mhm.
In the case of the John is when,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I had to get re-educated as to how come it wasn't going to go on the modified, is because it's the when. It's a-
But I guess, John, you could give the total issued.
Yes.
Yeah.
so
I
we have
mean,
to go all the way back from, where was the Raceway Park was the
No,
first?
we're just
No,
going.
no.
You wanna-
Yeah.
No, but you want those that are outstanding, right?
Yes.
And then just basically an
Yeah.
estimate what the public, and I thought I saw a report on that, what
We
the
did the-
public law provided.
mhm.
No, that was my audit.
Yeah.
Oh, was that your audit?
Yes, my audit
The
showed
2007.
that. But since that time, remember that was 2007.
You did the
and-
audit.
And how many other
Other credits were.
And
Right.
what I'm trying to say is, we saw something that it happened in 2013.
Mhm.
And that's kind of like another, we want to show
Right.
how much credits
Credit.
were taken.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even authorized,
So
and then
you
how
show what was taken already, right? Because on your audit. And
We
then
show
what was
what-
authorized is
and
the
what was authorized.
through the legislature,
Yes.
through.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like where your projection needs to take that into account.
Consideration.
Yeah, some kind of consideration.
The more I look into this structuring of the budget, when we talk about credits, when you look at the corporate, and you expect to collect 121 million, but part of that probably will be rebated.
Yes. No, I agree.
And, we
That's why
should
the
probably,
tax refund might be lower.
Yeah.
what we should start maybe be looking
Reflecting
at
the-
is what's the percentage of that will be rebated.
Yes.
That you get a net.
Mhm. That's
so-
what we want to arrive at, John. That's the issue we had with regards to reflecting these tax credits as not deferred revenue, but I don't know what the proper term would be, but
It's a liability.
yeah, a liability.
It's going to reduce revenue.
It reduces revenue. So, and we got to figure that out. and so
I think
forth.
there was a report that I did see, and I'm not sure if it was on the audit or was it just a separate report
Mhm.
listing all the public laws and the actual tax credit that was provided to
Mhm.
whoever.
Yeah.
So, we'll get that,
Well, we're
maybe
not
attach
doing
it to the
another
back here.
audit on this update, so that's still ongoing.
Okay. All right. Yes.
On the debt service, I know it's noted on the school improvement finance initiatives that are being contemplated. It's noted here, but is that in line with the recent DOE that master plan, maintenance master plan that is forthcoming or in the works?
I think it was separate, Lester, is that a separate, there are a number of different public laws in the debt service abstract?
Yeah.
That had school financing?
There are things on the books that we have. There are authorizations on the books that we haven't pursued. There's actually quite a number of them, simply because there isn't some consensus. I think that a good the DISIT building, they're trying to figure out, where they're going to locate it. The land management building, they're looking for tenants. So there are authorizations that, if structured correctly, could go forward. But every time I see people from land management, they say, what can we do with the buildings? And you should get, federal tenants and people that have, no impact on the government of Guam to help you out with respect to being your tenants. And they're in high demand right now. So again, in our debt abstract, we have a listing of approved financings. We didn't add in the most recent ones, the recently passed public laws 32, 120, and 121. There are, again, some issues with respect to quantifying collateral equipment and furniture needs, along with the cost of renovating schools that needs to be taken into consideration before, you kind of really got to understand how much it is that you're looking at financing in order to structure them properly. So.
Yeah,
I think there's a specific question.
Right, I just wanted to know if that was consistent, because when we're talking with the superintendent, I guess this was more along the lines he was stating that this DOE maintenance master plan should be something that is kind of be preceded to any type of financing for the overall school system.
Correct.
Right. So, so I'm just wondering if this is something that's been discussed, and this is primarily the reason why of this debt service increase over the 5-year span. That will be a factor once this plan is completed.
I think your increase of debt service doesn't take that into account.
No?
Just the current,
capitalized interest.
Existing debt.
that's just existing
That's
debt.
existing
Right.
debt. That's a new debt.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has a
Okay.
gap.
Okay. Well, just looking at the footnote because it's specific to the school improvement initiatives that are contemplated. So I'm just trying to see if that's what. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. We'll go ahead and then move into the revenue recommendation. Before we do that, as I mentioned in the initial opening of the meeting, the SES was accompanied by the creation of the SA, the Special Accounting Service. I'm sorry. And the Special Accounting Service Group meets also to review the financial information available to it from most of the classified staff of the government of Guam that are working in the financial and governmental financial areas and fiscal planning. And so it's The meeting is chaired by the Office of the Finance and Budget Director, which allows me at this time for our first formal meeting of the SES to introduce formally to you Mr. Ricky Hernandez, Artemio Ricky Hernandez, who has been appointed and has taken over the realms of the Office of Finance and Budget. So we'd like to congratulate him on that position. He's been a great addition to the staff and, of course, has picked up quite well from the former director, Mr. Chris Bodassi, who has moved on to other opportunities in this government. Excuse me, in the government. So I'd like to ask Mr. Hernandez to provide us some of the discussions that occurred in this Special Accounting Service Group.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Well, the SAS basically met twice in March, or once in March and once in April. We discussed basically the general fund and special revenue fund projections for the contained in the executive budget request. And just kind of a background of the SAS. Included in the SAS are members from BBMR, DOA, RevTax, our office as well, Bureau of Statistics and Plans, and DOL. We also had a member from Vice Speaker's office just join in. They're not a statutory member, but he took part in the discussions. And it was during the April 3rd meeting that the SAS basically discussed and approved a motion not to recommend any revenues as we've done in the past, but more so just approve a motion to just report on what was discussed during those meetings. And so with that, the general discussion was around general fund revenues, and we've discussed it already with respect to, or with in the discussion of the 5-year forecast. And there were similar discussions with regards to the business privilege tax revenue projections, and as well as the several different types of income taxes. And so the report I'm going to be providing right now is going to be very general. It was meant to be general and provide no recommendation from SAS, but rather just what was discussed. But more specifically, with regards to the special revenue funds and the projections in FY15, there were discussions with regard to the TEFF, the Territorial Education Facilities Fund, the Healthy Futures Fund. There's also some discussion on the Customs, Agriculture, and Quarantine Inspection Fund, and as well as the Manpower Development Fund. These specific funds were discussed specific to just with regards to the potential or the shortfalls that are occurring in FY14, and just how that would relate or affect FY15 revenue projections. And so there were some discussions on that. We've discussed already with the TEFF, the Healthy Futures Fund. Haven't really touched too much, at least at this level, with the Customs, Agriculture, and Quarantine Inspection Fund or the Manpower Development Fund. But the SAS, in those discussions, we basically just had some questions on it, and there were some issues with the answers that we could get, at least at the level of the members in the SAS. And so we figured maybe it would be better to have it up at this level. There was some indication where there were some questions directed to the members at BBMR that were present there, that they would check back with management. So we figured maybe just put the discussion up to SES where management is, and we could have that discussion here. And so we also did touch on the Tourist Attraction Fund with the given increase in projection, which we've discussed here already with the tourism update and things like that. And so much of the discussion that has taken place already was similar discussions have taken place at the SAS level. But up here, the SES level, it seems as it's a little more detailed. And so not much more to say on what we discussed other than that. And so I hope for a better or more discussion, at least on the specific special revenue funds that the SAS discussed that we haven't discussed here already. And there was also a discussion on the Solid Waste Operations Fund that we've touched on as well. So just to kind of give that frame of discussion, but that's basically what the SAS has touched on. We did talk about tax credits as well. There was some discussion on tax credits, but the motion to report to SES was specific to revenues. And so hopefully this kind of gives a frame around what we would discuss at this level with respect to FY15 revenue recommendations. And so I hope that kind of gives some framework as to what we may want to touch on with respect to special revenue funds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We already, as we mentioned, on the solid waste, we're going to try and get the actual remittance, verify the indenture and the bond covenants with regards to the remittance of that and where it would come from, so that we can reconcile that number and whether or not we can look at that $11 million number as something that will materialize as coming out of the Solid Waste Operations Fund versus being deducted from Section 30, if it should not be sufficient. The other issue is the TEFF. John's kind of given us an update on the TEFF, that the certification of the tax rolls should occur in the November meeting, probably. Is it? In October.
October, yes.
Right.
The board would meet to certify
the tax rolls.
Yes.
And the appraisals or the reappraisals will be done.
Because of the time frame, the appraisal will be done by August 30.
Right.
The taxable portion will be done by August 30.
And then once you certify that the tax rolls, John, by the end of October, the billings are sent out. Is it for that certification, so that if there is an increase in the tax roll certification and the tax bills are sent out, the collection would be recognized in FY15?
Yes, that would be the case, because the 15 will start on October 1st. So,
right. First payment is
normally
due
the bills bills will start going out latter of November, early December. People start coming in right away and paying that first quarter. A majority will be paid in the first quarter of the
February
2015.
Right.
Because that's when it's really due.
It's due to February 20, and the April. Or
right.
February and April.
And
right.
April, yes.
Yeah, okay. So that revenue, if indeed is going to increase, will come in and during the FY 2015. The other issue, John, maybe you can comment, is on the customs and quarantine. I guess, can we just get an idea from you?
That's from the, I believe they went through the AAA, and I believe that some of that is from the increase in passenger fees, as well as the cargo fees that they currently, I guess, they.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the
Yeah.
passenger fee became effective as of September last year.
That's correct.
So that's when they started generating those additional revenues just for
Right.
the airport. Now, with regards to the cargo, that was implemented or
from a
amended
year and a half,
upwards
right?
the year before.
And so that's one of the reasons why in the last year, 2 years, we've actually increased the revenues based on what we know. You do have, based on the budget, what you have done is any increases on the revenues, you allowed customs and quarantine to use those funds for their operations. Is that
Because of the law
correct?
enforcement component, and then for investments into the carousel and some of the other requirements. But one of the challenges, if I may, Mr. Chairman, is this time last year, they had not solidified a long-term lease arrangement. So they were still operating on a month-to-month basis.
But I think we took care of that problem on the lease, Senator, Mr. Chairman. I think you, when that was an issue a couple of years ago, you actually took it off their budget, if I remember correctly. I thought we took care of that lease problem.
The airport takes the revenues right off the top.
That's correct.
But what it is which that was an authorization.
Right.
So that's not an issue. It's just that they're working on a month-to-month lease arrangement where the airport on 2 separate occasions, just in the last 2.5 years, had adjusted their rates quite a bit. I mean, by $300,000, $400,000 every year. So just in the last 2.5 years on 2 separate occasions. So that's
you're saying that there is a lease agreement
on
then?
a month-to-month basis.
On a month-to-month basis.
So the challenge is, even with customs and quarantine, is being able to project for the entire fiscal year, not knowing exactly what their lease obligation is going to be. So that has always been the challenge.
Right.
So we need.
And if I remember correctly, they were always short on the lease payments.
Yes.
And then
Mr.
No,
Chairman, I think you
they're
made
never
the
short
correct-
on the lease payments because
I mean, well,
they're always short on their
they're always taking
operations.
more, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
They're always short on, and the general fund covers
Right,
it.
that's correct.
Yeah.
But that was corrected.
But the question now is, in the revenue that's to be adopted, what's the number there?
14.2.
14.2. Do you know what the current collections is?
No, I do not have.
Ricky, do you know? There we go.
Customs inquiry. As of this February. As of February, it is 4.9, an increase from 2013 by about 513,000.
Right.
Yeah. 4 or 5 months.
Given the growth in the passengers, very minimal growth in terms of the number of passengers, do you anticipate that you're going to collect 14 million? Is that? I mean, how much?
Yeah. Well, I know that you've always adjusted a number of these special funds when it gets closer to the budget time during August. You look at the tracking, and then you've always adjusted these numbers. So by July, August, when you have, remember this budget?
It was only it was barely $1 million.
I'm sorry?
Before the most recent increase, it was only $1 million.
The total customs and quarantine here, 14 is 4.9?
Yeah, but last year.
Oh, February, for the month.
Yeah,
For the
last
month
year.
of February, the amount was 1 million versus 2013 was 927. So it went up about 140,000 just in February alone.
Our internal tracking shows that customs and quarantine would generate approximately $8.8 million. So the increase of 8.8, if that tracking is correct, to 14 million, which is a 61% increase.
And that pretty much goes all to
customs.
Customs and quarantine.
Yeah, but do you?
So you're looking at reducing the budget for customs and quarantine?
No, I'm asking you.
How confident are you?
Yeah, right. That's my question.
It may include the lease payments, Mr.
Yeah,
So
I need to confirm that with the lease payment. Because I thought you corrected and maybe it wasn't corrected. That wasn't considered on the
So, but even if we add the $3 million in lease payments, you're still looking at an $11 million increase. And so another $3 million without an increase of passengers would be hard pressed to meet that. So maybe we'd ask you to look at that again.
Let me get you more information on that from Customs.
Right. And Mr. Vice Speaker?
I may be jumping the gun here, but I thought a couple of months ago you had a special appropriation to GCC because they didn't get enough money from the manpower development?
No, that was the 1.1 million.
From either the TAF or the THF.
TAF.
Yeah, we took it from TAF because they weren't getting the money from the manpower development. And I'm just wondering what the status of that is. Are we going to have to take money from TAF again? Not that I'm adverse to it, but I know that the chair is very protective.
Yeah, the current tracking for the Manpower Development Fund is about 1.2 million. And so the budget, executive budget request would ask us to recognize a revenue of 2.2 million. So that'll be, that's $1,000 per H2. So a growth of 1,000 H2s, and not really that because it's prorated so that if you're here for 6 months, you only pay the $500 fee because of the annual renewal. So maybe we can look at that again, John. Gary had mentioned, of course, growth in the construction industry, but we didn't see any, exponential growth there, so to speak. So that's something that we have to look at. And then the Healthy Futures Fund, as the Vice Speaker has mentioned, tracking showing for us somewhere in the neighborhood of $11.8 million. And the executive branch request is $16 million, which is a 35% increase. So we'd ask that those numbers, based upon the discussion that occurred at this SAS to be presented here, that those numbers again be looked at and revisited and re-examined, just to develop a bit more confidence in terms of what factors went into those projections.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions on? Yes, Senator Morrison.
A couple months ago, I've already established through the AAA process or a new fee schedule, and I believe this is kind of reflective of a status quo in the police service fund.
Mr. Rios?
I didn't bring my special fund sheet with me. I'm sorry. I thought we were going through the 5 years, just the general fund, but let me, no, this is the tracking sheet. Yeah, it's a different, on how we derived and on the special fund revenues.
Okay. So I was just mentioning that because I know they established a couple months ago, and I know that was to offset the shortfall in their administrative costs at the
691,000.
Yes, and I think they were projecting over $1 million with the new fee schedule. That's what they're stating.
Okay. So I think with maybe some recent legislation that was passed here, John, and some actions by the administration in terms of the AAA process, you might want to look at that.
Done in January. So
Right.
Yeah. Right. So, okay.
And that's where you would adjust it when you go through the
That's right.
the budget. You would make those adjustments, changes and tracking changes.
Right. Okay. John, on the tax refund provision, are we still good on these numbers?
John said we're good.
But he's leaving you, and you're going to go visit by yourself.
Even with the 3,000 new EIC eligible filers?
We're going to keep paying tax refunds, Senator.
Yes, of course.
Keep doing it.
Well, like I said earlier, most of the prior years refunds are paid up, and if you like you said, we looked at for every tax year now we're looking at $125 million, and it's right, but not everybody's going to file everything at one time. So, when you look at this 118, 120, you don't really know, what actually, but if you really were to pay, if you ask the question, we're going to pay everything at 1 year, in other words, everybody would file, one time, and we have to pay it, everybody in one fiscal year, then you're looking at 125. In other words, yes, but I don't believe that everybody would file everything at one time, and and again, the other thing is, the E&S, it's when you look at the E&S, which is the error and suspended returns, they come up 10 million, 11 million, it goes down, it comes up, so there's also a challenge there that normally it won't be paid out right away, because there's so many reasons why we have to send out a letter, we need a schedule, or we forgot to add these or these, so it takes time, so I think 118 is very comparable. If you look at the percentage, I think it's around 27-28% of what every dollar that is collected that's put aside. And unless otherwise, something comes up drastically and everybody, 100% of the filers, which is about 48,000 filed, at the same time, and we have to pay that in 6 months, then maybe we'll probably have to, cough up a little bit more. But again, the next year, what do you look at the next year?
Well, that's why, of course, it's very important that we follow the provision for making the deposits into the on a monthly basis into the income tax, efficiency payment trust account. So.
And again, you look at the process where where you know that a lot of these are reimbursed.
Mhm.
You know, of the 125, you're probably looking at 18 million if in a tax year that's reimbursed to the ACTC. So those are the mechanism where we pay out, 5 million in one quarter or 4 million in one quarter. We get that money, we put it back. Like, by law, 90% of that is put back into the
Mhm.
efficiency fund to use to pay refunds.
Right.
So it's just like a routine. So John said we're comfortable with it. So
Okay. All right. Okay.
And they're efficiently processing because within 2 weeks of my filing my taxes for the 15th, they already found that I had underpaid by $150. So unless I'm getting special treatment and having mine
Yes, you
reviewed,
are.
Special review.
they're very efficient.
Yes.
But I believe that 180. I mean,
You underpaid, yes, you're efficient.
Okay. Besides the revenues, of course, we have the expenditure side, and there's a large growth in the expenditure on the personnel side. DOA, Tony, can we get a breakdown of the Hay study costs by agency for FY15? You embedded it in the budget, John, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
The hay.
Yeah. So
I think we provided you both.
the semi-autonomous, but they're not broken down by,
We asked us for like account numbers and stuff like that, which we provided you, right? So it was easier for you to
Right.
follow through in the AS400, right?
Yeah, this year we requested BBMR to put account number, AS400 account numbers on the staffing patterns. And so that's assisted us to a certain extent. I think what Senator Pangelinan was asking specifically was a request we've sent to DOA with respect to just how much by employee, at least a breakdown of pre-hay implementation and post-hay, and then by employee, and then showing us the transfer of their grade step from before and after, and organized by agency. And so
Was that those
I
boxes
think
that you
we sent the information to you. I think Senator BJ. I think you're the one that you didn't pick it up. We're waiting for you.
But but they've inputted all that information.
A few boxes,
So it's a matter of writing a program, and we've been able to get that in the past. So yeah, but it doesn't require a re-input in the information. It requires an extraction through a query, and I know Ken has done this for us in the past.
Pull that out from the. Are you guys
No.
allowed to do queries? No, you're not allowed to do queries
Not on payroll.
on payroll. I won't touch that.
Yeah. So
We're still trying to get marital information.
She's asking.
Oh, we saw that one.
I mean, one Kate,
Shame.
So if we can get that, Tony, can you look at it? Again, it's a matter of writing a query, and we've received this report in the past, so it's not, we're not asking for something new. I know that the report has been provided to us in the past, and as a matter of fact, like I said, the reason why we know it's a matter of writing a query for a report is because we have cooperated in the past to get this information. Okay, all right. That kind of concludes our agenda. I kind of wanted to present to the body here with regards to the revenue numbers and the final numbers. Is after all this discussion and questions and so forth, is there maybe a consensus here to adopt a revenue?
I think there's been too much information that has to come back.
Okay.
And, Mr. Chairman?
I was just comparing because I happened to have last year, we didn't meet last year until July.
Yes, I know.
And kudos to you for having it much earlier.
Right.
But the problem is, I think as we move later, the information will get stronger.
Mhm.
Okay.
So-
And then also, hopefully, the audit will be issued to have some comparisons, especially as to the income tax and a few other numbers there. So right now, from my only from me. I would prefer to abstain because I don't feel comfortable yet. Okay.
So,
Unless we have another subsequent.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
unless we
well-
have a subsequent meeting. We have a subsequent, to update the information.
I'd like to go ahead and just make a motion to approve the executive request for the general fund and special fund revenues. And of course, after we approve, if we approve it, OFB goes through a process where the senators or the legislature makes changes to the budget request and then send it back for the governor, to the governor for approval.
Yeah, I'll take your motion under consideration and the discussion that's occurred, but I seem to agree with the public auditor in this respect in that we've asked you to kind of take a look at some of these special funds and quantify them, the solid waste, and that could, taking all those funds would be, and looking at all of those could be $20 million, $25 million swing.
And that's what you've been changing that.
No, we
too,
haven't.
In the last.
We haven't really changed those numbers.
You
I mean,
have
we've
changed
come
it.
back.
I can show you what you've changed.
We've come back and we've changed those numbers at a meeting here, and then adopted those numbers. But we didn't make unilateral changes in that until we got to the legislative floor. So the committee or our office did not do that. So.
And then during the budget hearings, again, you would make again the presentations, and then you'll make changes again, right?
Right, and that the body makes that change.
Okay, so the SES will recommend to the body, or
Yeah, it would recommend to
not
the
to
body.
OFB then?
That's correct. Okay. So, do I have a withdrawal of your motion at this time?
No, I'd still like to make the motion to approve the.
All right. Can you restate the motion then, John?
My motion is to approve the general fund revenues and the special fund revenues that are stated in the governor's 2015 executive budget.
Okay. And on that motion? Okay. On the motion, please, I guess everybody here is a voting member. Okay. Can I get a show of hands? No. One, two. Okay. All right. Let the record show that there were 6 votes to approve the revenues. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, that would then conclude our meeting, and we want to thank each and every one of you for your participation this afternoon. John, even though the revenues are adopted, we still have those action items for...
The account numbers that I provided, you guys, okay?
Yeah. So please make sure that we'll be sending you a follow-up email and letter reminding you of the action items, just like last year. Okay. There being no other motion to adjourn? The Special Economic Service meeting is here now.